Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the New Year's special, Resolution, written by Chris Chibnall and is directed by Wayne Yip, the first director of the Chris Chibnall era to be a returning director. He had previously directed a Peter Capaldi stories. I believe it was one of the Mummy, the Monk trilogy, as well as directing 2 of episodes of the spin-off Class. So this is his return to the series. You could probably, I'm holding series 12, which is a bit confusing for some people because it's actually series 11. It's technically part of series 11. A lot of people consider it the actual conclusion after they were disappointed with the actual conclusion to series 11, the Battle of Ranskoor Al Kolos. But as you can see by that, also includes Doctor Who Resolution Special. So this actually features the special. This is one of the few stories to be set when it aired. This story was aired on January the 1st, New Year's Day, well, the actual day, 2019. This puts it in line with the previous New Year's special, The End of Time, which was the last David Tennant and Russell T Davies's era, at least his first era. Their first era. As we know, they are returning. But anyway. And also, this is actually the 3rd story featuring this particular villain that aired on New Year's Day. I don't know if I'm not going to keep this a spoiler. It's a spoiler warning. But this story has an alternative titles by fans. The story is officially called Resolution, but to fans, it's Resolution of the Daleks. Yes, this is the first appearance of a returning villain in the Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker era, as it features the Daleks, mutated creatures from the planet Skaro. You watch Doctor Who, you know what they are. And the reputation as of this moment, when the Daleks were first appearing, was one of, not ridicule, but the Daleks have lost their presence during the Stephen Moffat era. A lot of people agreed that when Russell T Davies took over the series back in 2005, the Daleks, when they were appearing, had a lot of precedence, a lot of focus upon them, and also the stories dealt with them in a very serious and very vocal manner, being allegories for political topics, as they usually are, as well as stories have focused heavily on them and the effects that they have on people and their resolutions of the stories. Basically what I was trying to say is that Russell T Davies brought back the Daleks after their obscure, constantly being ridiculed as the monsters that couldn't get upstairs back in the 80s, 90s and early 2000s. However, when Stephen Moffat took over as showrunner, the series struggled with the Daleks. It was clear to a lot of people that maybe he just wasn't a big fan of the Daleks. In fact, the first Dalek story in the Stephen Moffat era, he gave to his supporting writer, Mark Gatiss, or Gatiss, whatever you prefer. So Chris Chibnall's first doubting of the Dalek is a very significant point. Is this going to go back to a much more focal Dalek-centric story? Or is this story going to be like Stephen Moffat, where the Daleks are just kind of used as, okay, so we don't have to explain who these monsters are, let's get the rest of the plot going, which is how Stephen Moffat usually used them in his line of work. So yeah, let's get on to the main narrative. We first get introduced to Lynn and March, played by Charlotte Ritchie and Nikash Pallet. And they are discovering... Well, actually, let me take that back. We first get introduced to this mythology of these warriors during medieval times. And there's this mythology that they conquered this enemy which terrified them so much they split up the monster into 3 bits and spreaded it around the world in a vain hope that it will never be resurrected, can never haunt anyone again. And that's when we cut into modern day on New Year's, where we get Lynn and March, and they are these they basically like dig for like fossils and stuff. They found one of the fossils of the people who were protecting one of the alien body parts, and quickly they discover it's like a mutated slug, mutated octopus kind of looking thing, as the Doctor detects the energy source that it picks up from the creature, not knowing yet what it is, as the Doctor, Graham, Ryan and Yaz, after celebrating like 100 New Years at once, decide that they are going to go into modern day 2019, January the 1st, to find out what's going on and what is happening. All the while, the creature takes over Lynn, using her as a sort of slave, as a sort of puppet, controlling her. She's got it on her back, and she goes around infiltrating many locations, taking a police car, going into a secret like military base to steal an ancient weapon, and then later on go into the GCHQ headquarters, and we'll get onto that in a bit. And the Doctor soon discovers that the alien DNA that she discovered in this area was in fact Daleks, and the Dalek is out of its casing and it's running rampant and is taking Lynn as hostage as they team up with March to really get like some information upon him. All the while, something else happens as they go to Graham's house to basically make their base of operations in Sheffield, as somebody starts knocking on the door. Great scene when Graham opens the door, looks who it is, and just goes, nope, and closes the door. Ryan asks who is it, and he just goes, wrong number. Brilliant. This person is actually Aaron, Ryan's father, Grace's son, played by Daniel, I can't pronounce his last name, I'm going to try, Aju Boya? I'm completely butchered his last name. I do really apologise. And essentially he's trying to get a bond back with his son, Ryan. And Graham is being very protective of Ryan and is like, right, you can't mess this up. You can't hurt him again. He's been through a lot. You have no idea. Ryan needed you at the funeral of his mother, at the funeral of his grandmother, and you just weren't there. So you really need to make it up. You really need to just step forth or just get out of his life entirely. Now, one thing that's really important to note in this story, and I think a lot of people do agree with me on this, is that the story feels very separated into these two segments. The story feels very dissonant in the fact that there are two stories going on, but don't feel connected, don't feel eye to eye. They do connect at the end of the story, but they just feel really out of place with one another. You'll get a scene where they're talking about the Daleks, the Dr. Yaz, sometimes Graham, sometimes Ryan, depending on when in the story it takes place. Chasing the Dalek, chasing Lynn, as Lynn is going around killing and murdering a bunch of people. By the way, the death count in this story does get high halfway through the story, and some of the death scenes are phenomenal. I really like the effect of the Dalek shooting. It reminds me a lot of the first time they appeared in the revived era, Dalek, as well as Remembrance of the Daleks, the last appearance of them in the classic series, where it like zaps them and you can see their skeleton from the inside. But there's kind of like this oomph. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the special effect of the sound gives it this hit. Like you feel like there's a physical contact. The sound effect as well is also taken from the Daleks' guns, from Remembrance of the Daleks. Very connecting the two of the new era and the classic era. Very cool. But there's also that dissonance to the other story of Ryan, and sometimes Graham, again, depending on when in the story the scenes takes place, interacting with Ryan's father and trying to make him a better man, a better person. Because there's a lot of scenes where it just feels so disconnected. There's a scene where Ryan goes into a cafe with his father, and there's this beautiful speech. It's probably Toshin Cole's greatest performance as of yet in the series. It really made me love him as an actor. A lot of people hadn't been keen on him up to this point. However, and I do feel like he wasn't given enough to show his acting skills. But here, when he's basically telling his father what he should have said, that like, I'm sorry to make you feel like a disappointment, like you weren't wanted. That lovely moment and the camera's fixated on him. That's such a beautiful scene. But it feels so disconnected. It feels so out of place when you've got this cheesy, not a cheesy, but proper sci-fi Dalek adventure that like a lot of people are more interested in because it's bloody Daleks in the first time the Daleks have appeared in the 13th Doctor era. It's a big deal. So it felt like these stories are really great here. I think they're both well executed and well realised. But the fact that they're basically fighting for screen time against each other until at the end where they start merging together. You do feel it, and you do really get this dissonance throughout the story where it's like, oh my god, I can't wait to see more Dalek scenes, right? We're going to cut back to the Doctor, yes, and we're going to find out like how they're going to work it out more. Oh no, we're cutting to Ryan and his father dealing with their emotional issues, and then that builds up and it's like, oh, that's very interesting. So we're going to cut to like Graham and him having like maybe a word with the Doctor about Ryan and the family and all that. No, we're going back to the fun Dalek adventure. Do you see there's a kind of a dissonance here? But I do think they're well realised. We talked a lot about Ryan's father and Ryan's connection. But let's talk about what everybody, I think, really wants to talk about. And that is the Daleks in this story. They have it's just one in this story, has a phenomenal presence here. The new Dalek theme by Sega Nakanola is absolutely just funky. It's really mainly like 3 notes that like uses its motif, but it's very in your face. It's very bombastic, which is unusual for the Sega Nakanola era, and it gives this presence towards it that I do really love. But let's talk about the creature itself. Nicholas Briggs returns to voice the creature, being one of the few actors to return from previous eras up to this point. And what I really like about this story is that the focus is on the Daleks. We are going back to a more Russell T Davies era approach of the Daleks. But this is a story that we've never, ever had before. This is a story that kind of has been teased that could have been done. There was a Dalek on the loose in Dalek, and one Dalek out of its case attacked the 4th Doctor in the story Genesis of the Daleks, as well as seeing one of the mutated creatures in the story Dalek. But this one, it's mainly out of its casing, and it takes a human prisoner. This Dalek is also unlike any other Dalek that we've seen before. It's kind of like a Dalek, a creature that's playing with its food as it taunts Lynn. It's like, you are my prisoner, you are my puppet. And it's got a grin on its face. When the Dalek takes her to get the car to go to the military base where its gun is kept, it's chased by a police officer, and he tells Lynn, do you think this is, I can read into your thoughts, you think this is hope? No, this is another chance for combat. And it gives Lynn this like sinister grin. Charlotte Ritchie also does a fantastic job here at portraying this character who is very sensitive, very shy kind of individual, and all of this like terrible stuff of being controlled by one of the most evilest races in the universe, taking her control of her body. She plays the sinister parts very well, and she plays the Lynn part extraordinarily well as well. And you really feel this connection with this character. You really feel bad for her, especially when you see her in a relationship at the start with Much, who I will admit isn't an interesting character. He is kind of here so that Lynn has a emotional connection to the rest of the TARDIS crew as Mitch travels with the rest of the TARDIS team, but he doesn't really do that much apart from explain certain of the mythology of how the Dalek got onto Earth in the first place. This is a reconnaissance Dalek, one of the few Daleks the first left in the first wave of Skaro, making it much more violent than any usual Daleks with abilities like mind control to a degree. And when it's revealed that it's on Earth building a new casing with Sheffield metal, just a really cool idea. The Dalek also has a lot of scenes where it just kills innocent people, the police officers. It shoots a farmer with a gun, again having a really cool effect. And then we get into the scene which a lot of people were waiting for when this story was a Dalek story, and that was the scene in which we first see the Dalek casing, the new Dalek casing. Though it isn't really a new Dalek casing, the story makes it obvious that this isn't just like a normal Dalek. This is a Dalek that's basically used scraps of metal to reconfigure itself. So this isn't like the new Dalek design, but it is a Dalek design built up out of scraps of metal. So it's got this kind of like a parody of a Dalek design. And a lot of people are kind of split down the middle of this. I'm also very split down the middle. I really don't like how thin it is, and I don't like how it's got like less bumps. You know, the bumps on the skirt of the casing just looks really off, and I really don't like that. However, the colour design with the grittier rusted metal, absolutely love it. I do like the lighting on its necking, with the red lights up with its eye. The eye stalk is brilliant. The fact that it doesn't have a sucker, it has kind of like a pincer. So it's essentially got like two weapons now instead of just like sucker and the weapon. And I will admit, one of the reasons I really like this Dalek design is because the story does so well, utilizes with it. When it confronts the Doctor, like that scene is just so well cool. And you have the iconic Doctor peering into the eye scope of the Dalek. It's like an iconic scene that like every Doctor must go through at least one point. Apart from, I guess, the 8th Doctor, because he never actually met them on screen, but that's beside the point. But yeah, but then after this scene, the Dalek escapes and actually goes into UK space, where it confronts the military. This scene is basically goes, yes, the Daleks are back, and they're back in full force. As the rest of the soldiers are first of all are just like, what? And the Daleks just like, you will surrender? You can talk? And the Dalek, what's the Dalek say? Without even like signifying that there is a time limit. Doesn't even like count down or anything. It's just like the maximum time limit of time that you can surrender has expired, and it starts getting like ready. It starts getting like these missiles out as the soldiers are just like, run. There's like run as some of them starts firing. But however, it's completely useless, and the Dalek one by one just starts destroying, killing all the soldiers, destroying the tanks. One tank finally gets a chance to shoot a missile, but the Dalek shoots a counter missile, which nudges the missile out of the way, shoots at the Dalek, shoots at the tank, firing at the Dalek, and it explodes, leaving nothing but destruction and chaos in its wake. Ah, yes! This is what I was missing! This is something that Stephen Moffat would never have touched! This is something that made me like... It was one of those scenes that like took me back as a kid and reminds me of the scene in which the Dalek in Dalek goes around and just kills people in the corridor one by one, as it's like there's no hope in hell for these humans. Only the Doctor can help. What a fantastic scene. Absolutely. It's basically that scene is just there to go, right, we are going to present the Daleks as you want them, as a threat, as a creature that must be stopped, as one of the most dangerous races in the galaxy. Here you are. You're welcome. I know people are going to hate me for this, but thank you, Chris Chibnall, for this scene. That's all I'm asking. Speaking of help, like the Doctor decides that she needs some help. She thinks that the Daleks, or at least this Dalek in particular, is a very dangerous cause that needs military aid, and she tries to call up UNIT. This was actually a very controversial moment at the time. Controversial to an degree that, like, some people did kind of misinterpret the scene. Essentially, the Doctor calls up her old friends at UNIT, specifically Kate Stewart. However, she learns that UNIT aren't around at the moment. They've been suspended after certain debates in terms of spending and funding. And the Doctor's just like, what? Okay, so we're on our own. This scene was very controversial because a lot of people thought that this was the end of UNIT and didn't really felt like it was like a disgrace to the classic era of Doctor Who where we had all them units. Of course, this is a political allegory for the fact that at the time, the Tory government were trying to take down NHS as much as possible, as much as physically possible. And you've got to ask yourself, like, why would people take down a military organizations built to protect them? Well, why in the real world are we doing the same thing to a hospital service which protects and gives up healthcare to real life human beings? It's going, yeah, that is stupid. Like, a lot of people point to the scene as like it's very stupid. Why would they do that? And the only real rebuttal to that is, yeah, it is stupid. Why are we doing it in real life? But a lot of people kind of took this the wrong way. A lot of people thought that this was the end of UNIT as a whole. I must admit, when I first heard it, it did sound like, right, what, UNIT is just gone. No, the story does state, the woman on the other end of the phone does state that UNIT is still around. It's just been suspended. It's just been like on hold as they work out like the funding and stuff. Basically, there's a chance that they could have gone, but they're not. They're still around, but they're being suspected. They've been investigated for their funding and stuff, as the Doctor is just completely helpless and has to fight the Dalek on her own. Along with as well as the TARDIS team, as Ryan's father gets a microwave that he tries to sell off this microwave, and the Doctor is just like, oh, that's very cool. But Ryan's father is like, right, I've got a great idea, as he dismantles the machine, and the Doctor and the crew track the Dalek to GCHQ, which is a real-life organisation of defence. Fun fact, after this story was aired, they actually went on Twitter and said that their operations are now back running after the attack of the Daleks. That was really fun. That was really cool. Well played there. And they go on this... and the Doctor confronts the Dalek and is like, I'm backed up by humanity in this great shot where they've got all lined up as she puts down the force field and she runs one way, distracting the Dalek, as the rest of the characters start putting the microwave equipment onto the Dalek, burning the casing. And I think they think they've saved the day. They think they've won. But like every good villain, they keep coming back as the creature then takes over Aaron's body, using him like he did with Lynn, and forces the Doctor to take him back to the Dalek shuttlecraft, and beginning their true invasion of Earth. But the Doctor tricks him in putting him in front of a sun that's going supernova, and the doors open and she makes this tunnel just enough size for a squid so the Dalek can suck through. However, the Dalek does not let go of Aaron, and the little corridor that she's made to suck it out, expands and is able to take Aaron as well. Ryan, there's this beautiful shot of the ship being sucked into the supernova, as well as Ryan at the door leading out his father's hand. It's like, I forgive you, I love you. And Ryan grabs on as the creature is thrown into the atmosphere of the sun to be burnt, to be destroyed. The only way to destroy this Dalek is to send it to a sun that has gone supernova. If that is not a threat, I don't know what is. And I love that there's a cinematography here. Wayne Yip's directing is like, there's so many great shots in this story which like spins out my head. And that is the 2019. It's not it's the New Year's special that aired on January the 1st, 2019. Resolution. Overall, the story has a lot of things going for it. The Dalek is well utilised. The stuff with Ryan and his father is well realised and brings more depth to Ryan as a character, as well as learning a bit more about their family history. All the main casts are very well executed. Lynn, Charlotte Ritchie, very great actress. The Dalek, Nicholas Briggs back, brilliant. I love that bit where it laughs as well. I forgot to mention that scene where the Doctor basically sets up Lynn as a hologram in the TARDIS so she can talk to the Dalek face to face. At this point, the Dalek doesn't know that the Doctor is the Doctor. Confronting the Dalek as much as possible, but also trying to speak to Lynn on the inside. Like, don't worry, we will help you. We got Mitch. We're going to save you. So, just the shots there, that first angle when the Doctor spins around and she comes face to face with the hologram. Mwah! Mwah! Wayne Yip, you are a godsend. But the story also feels very dissonant. The stuff with Ryan's father and the stuff with the Daleks do feel like they should have been in two separate episodes. Some scenes where the Dalek is killing people might just feel like as well that they're just there to pad on the time. However, I do think it's well executed. Just see more Daleks murder. That's what we need in life. Some of the jokes very work and some of the jokes don't. There's a bit where the Doctor's like, okay, so how much is a rel? Great line in terms of like rels is a established fact in Daleks mythology. It's how they use to track the time. But she doesn't know, but the Doctor has never like actually sat down and was like, okay, what's a rel? Playing on to that, but the scene's placing just after her first encounter with the Dalek, back in its casing, leaving it out, escaping, kind of felt out of place in that particular moment. But yeah, I really enjoyed this story, very much enjoyed this episode, and highly recommended, if I say so myself. So anyway, that's Resolution. So join me next time as we kick off Series 12 of the Revived Era of Doctor Who, as the Doctor, Ryan, Yaz and Graham are sent on a mission by the CIA. Is it the CIA? British headquarters, MI6. MI6. As the Doctor was confronted face to face with a billionaire tech genius, as well as his accomplice, who might be familiar to the audience. So join me next time for Spyfall, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.